Good morning, folks, and welcome to this Sunday morning message from Ebenezer Church, Wesleyan Reformed Church in Langley, but live from my snug. I hope everyone's doing well. I hope that everyone's keeping safe and sensible. I know that hopefully now, as these vaccines get rolled out, we are seeing an end to this, and I hope and pray that maybe by Easter we'll be back in the church and being able to worship together. My reading this morning is from Corinthians. It's 1 Corinthians 13, which probably is no surprise to many of you as we read and we go on and you realise what that passage is. So 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verses 1 to 13, and it says this: If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all my possessions to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part that I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these things remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. May God bless the reading of his word. Now, today is one of those days, isn't it? It's one of those days for mixed emotions for many people. Why? And why read that passage? Well, many of you were aware that it is Valentine's Day. To some, this is a happy time. We celebrate our relationships to one another. To others, it's all about a physical thing. To others, it's a sad day. For those who are currently single, or those who are missing loved ones that they have lost. And to be honest, don't want to know about all the sloppiness that's going on. And it is a very hard time for those who have lost loved ones, especially in recent times. And we have seen that this is a big day for business. We see that Valentine's means, sentimental cards, tokens, or gifts sent from one person to another. And we see that normally it's a big business thing. Although, to be honest, if you've been out and you have braved supermarket shopping or anything like this, I personally think it's a lot less this year than it has been. But still, it is a big business, where we send presents to one another in the name of Saint Valentine on Saint Valentine's Day, the object of one affection. And it has become a lot of tatty slush, let's be honest. Sometimes downright disgusting bits of tat get given to one another. But is that where it all started? Is that the truth of what it's all about? And where did it start? Well, it started in around 270 AD with a Christian martyr. Valentine was the name of a young man who lived in Rome during the reign of Claudius II, when Christians were being persecuted. Although he was not a Christian, he helped them. But he was caught and put in prison. In prison, he became a believer in Jesus. And because of this, Valentinus was condemned to death. He was beaten with clubs, stoned, and finally beheaded outside the Flaminian Gate on February the 14th, 269. After his death, this gate was known as the Porta Valentia. And while he was in prison, he sent messages to his friends saying, "Remember your Valentine, and I love you." And there we have it. That word, love. And it's a word I'm sure that we use often with one another. The word love. But what context do you use it? And what on earth does this word actually mean? Let's face it, it is probably one of the most overused words in the English language. Love means so many different things nowadays. We use it all the time, except when you get into a relationship, and then it becomes almost a taboo word that you handle with care. But we love so much, don't we? It can be that you love members of your family, or you love your pets, or you love your Xbox or your PlayStation, you love having a shower or a bath. And it seems incredibly hard to pin down what love actually is and what the word actually means. Especially in a world where we seem to have confused love and sex. The society we live in, and most of the world live in, is driven by sex. There's no two ways about it. Sex sells. Certain images are made to tailor and to sell. And the problem is that the world gets so obsessed with that it leads to a degradation of our society. And compromises are made on what we would consider as decent, because the world suddenly decides that images we see are actually as bad as so many body parts are shown as the norm, and nakedness just becomes part of it. And we stray from what the idea of what love is to what sex is. What do I mean? Well, the idea of attraction is based on a physical stirring of someone that they want to attract you. That's arousal. But is this love? Or is this just a sex thing? And that's where the line has been crossed, because over the years that's what's happened, that we've got the two confused. And you see it all the time, and especially on this day, Valentine's Day. C.S. Lewis wrote his famous book, The Four Loves, in which he describes love in four ways. And this is because, shock horror, the Bible was not written in English. It was written in Greek. And the Greeks do not have just one word for love. They have many. And Lewis tries to explain them. And he talks about affection and friendship and eros, which is erotic attraction, and charity. And in the introduction to the book, he tries to tackle a simple statement which has led him to investigate the nature of love. That statement is, God is love. God is love, Saint John. When I first tried to write this book, I thought that his maxim would provide me with a very plain high road through the whole subject. And on the surface, I'm sure that the task did look fairly simple. To explain that statement, God is love. But it turns out to be far more complicated. And I'm sure that Lewis, and if you ever read the book, you'll find out that it was not easy. The Bible itself, as I've just said, there are different words and different translations to that one word, love. There's filio, and I don't mean pastry. I mean filio as in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, as it is translated. And this is probably one of the most common words that is used, as it refers to the love between one's family and friends. And it's the affection we share to one another. Then there's eros. I've already mentioned eros. The word that is, we know that this word was around at the time, but it's actually never in the New Testament. Never used within the New Testament itself. The final one that we are perhaps more familiar with when we read love in the Bible is a translation of the word agape. And this word is used in the phrase that so loved the world. God is love. If you love me, keep my commandments. It's the most common translation, or the most common love word that we find. And so the confusion continues on. There are so many words and concepts for love that what on earth is it? Can it be defined? Has it any substance at all? Well, from the world point of view and what it's considered as love, I would argue that there is no value or substance to that at all. But God's concept of love, what he considers love, is far greater and does indeed have a substance. Now, I'm a fan of American Christian folk country rocker called Larry Norman. He was a bit out there, no denying that, but I do like his music. He wrote a song, Why Should the Devil Have All the Good Music? Which is a great question, but it's also one of the most one of the songs contracts the idea of self. One of his songs goes into the idea of self and satisfaction with Jesus. It's called Why Don't You Look Into Jesus? Now, there are two versions out there that I'm aware of. There's the original version and the slightly modernized version. If you get a chance, go and look it up on YouTube. It's a great song and it tackles some interesting subjects. And I think Larry hit the nail on the head with the idea that it's all about self. And when it comes to most of our problems, it is about self, me or I. And if we were to deal with love, we must understand about self and how it plays its part in this concept. If you look, as I said, at the world's idea of love, you will see that it's completely based around self. Every idea and facet is to do with the idea of getting something for you, enjoying yourself, and fulfillment of your pleasure. In other words, it's all about take, take, take. Now, all old married couples out there, which after 15 years technically I am, will instantly tell you that it's actually about give and take, especially women. I think the phrase is, what's his is mine and what's mine's my own. I kid. But the general idea as the world sees love and the world's concept is that it's about self. But Paul tells us as Christians something completely different that we've just found and we've seen in the verse I've read from 1 Corinthians. And he also says it in other places. He says it here in Ephesians 4. So I tell you this, and insist on it in the Lord, that you must no longer live as Gentiles do, in the futility of their thinking. They are darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God because of their ignorance that is in them due to hardening of their hearts. Having lost all sensitivity, they have given themselves over to sensuality so as to indulge in every kind of impurity, and they are full of greed. That, however, is not the way of life you learned when you heard about Christ and were taught in him in accordance with the truth that is Jesus Christ. You were taught with regards to your former way of life to put off the old self, which is being corrupted by deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. There seems to be a real contrast, doesn't there, between self and the world's idea and the Christian's selflessness. As Paul once again says in the main passage I read, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no records of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. One point I'd like to make right here is a little off topic, but I think it needs to be said. All those images of crude shaped lollies and overtly sexualized stuff that comes out as part of Valentine's Day, and people post all over the internet to believe as being funny, is pornography. And the word is derived from the Greek word pornoros, and that word means evil. A direct translation means evil. Verse 6 says, love does not delight in evil. I'll leave you to think about that. Let's get back to the point. Paul's idea here in Corinthians of love, we see it does indeed completely contrast with self-desires. We see that Paul says of love a couple of things. Firstly, real love does the right things for the right reasons. In other words, love means you do what you do for no selfish reason, but for the benefit of the other person. A great example of this would be the film Frozen. Normally Disney films are all about true love's kiss. True love is that you get to snog the prince at the end of the film, to put it bluntly. Frozen wasn't like that. The act of true love that you see in Frozen was the self-sacrifice of Anna to save her sister Elsa. And it's a great example of self-sacrificing love. Love, by the way, is a choice. It's a choice to put the interests of the other person and their well-being before yours. Real love has certain attributes. Paul says that love has certain unmistakable qualities, again, all of which go against self. Love is patient, kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no records of wrong, it doesn't delight in evil, it rejoices in truth, it protects, trusts, hopes, and perseveres. Real love stands the test of time. Paul concludes this wonderful chapter on love in verse 13 by saying that in the end there are three essential things that will matter: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is real love. And so we come back again to what real love is. Apart from the fact that Paul explains it in the passage that I've read, real love is, as Lewis puts it, divine love, which in turn is a gift love, as opposed to a need love, which is the human, worldly idea of love. The first distinction, Lewis says, is therefore between what is called gift love and need love. The typical example of gift love would be the love which makes a man to work and plan and save for a future and well-being for his family, which he will die without sharing or seeing. Of the second, which seems a lonely and frightened child flee to his mother's arms. There is no doubt which was more like love himself. Divine love is God love, gift love. The Father gives all he has, all he is and has to the Son. The Son gives himself back to the Father and gives himself to the world and for the world to the Father, and thus gives to the world in himself back to the Father true. And what, on the other hand, can be less like anything we believe of God's life than need love. He lacks nothing but our need love, as Plato saw, is the son of poverty. It's an accurate reflection in consciousness of our actual nature. We are born helpless. As soon as we are fully conscious, we discover loneliness. We need others physical. We need them physically, emotionally, intellectually. We need them if we are to know anything, even ourselves. These are Lewis's words. I was looking forward to writing some fairly easy panegyrics on the first sort of love and disparagements of the second. And much of what I was going to say still seems to be true to me. I still think that if all we mean by our love is craving to be loved, then we are in a very deplorable state. There is such a contrast, isn't there, between the selflessness of worldly love and the unselflessness, selfishness of God's love. The most famous verses ever is perhaps the one about, for God so loved the world. And we see that perfect idea of wanting the best for someone else, for the other, in some other verses, and they're all about love. God demonstrates his own love for us, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So that goes back to Paul's description of love, doesn't it? Love is patient. We can say with certainty that God's love was patient, can't we? He could have, perhaps in many ways, wiped mankind, i.e. us, off the face of the earth multiple times, but he chose not to. He chose to find the solution in the cross. Love is kind. The punishment for sin is death, but the kindness of God's love is that his Son took it all. Your sin on that cross. So you don't have to take that punishment if you accept that Jesus did it for you. It does not envy. The choice is yours. Either you accept this fact or you don't. God does not force you to believe. And I could go on and checklist against every facet of what Paul writes, and we could check it against God's love. But the simple fact is that what love is, and I mean divine love, gift love, as Lewis puts it, is to want the best for everyone else but yourself. And when you learn true love, then you will have the best love ever. And I urge you today to seek love, not in Hallmark cards or Moonpig or Funky Pigeon, not in chaos or roses or vulgar things, but in the one who gave us love in the first place, God. And learn about his love and what you mean to him. Amen. God bless you, folks. I hope that you have a good week ahead. Just to note that Wednesday is Ash Wednesday. I do plan to put a message out on Wednesday evening. Hope you can join me at 7 o'clock. God bless you all. And I hope that you have a good week ahead of you. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Stay sensible. God bless you all.